Hi, in this video, we are going to be talking about how you can deploy FantasyPortrait as your very own API. FantasyPortrait is a new model where you give it a driving video, so you do some face acting, and then you give it a still image of a character, and the model will apply the acting in the driving video to your still image character and output a video. Here are some tests I ran against some similar models. Note that Infinite Talk uses audio for the lip sync rather than driving video, but the others take driving videos.
Well, I don't care what you think, Andrew. Dick? Rich? Will milk be made available to us? We're pretty thirsty, sir.
I have a really low tolerance for dehydration.
I've seen her dehydrate, sir. It's pretty gross.
There is a comfy UI workflow for this open source model, but not many other ways to quickly spin it up and play with it. So I decided to integrate it with Modal, which allows you to create an API from models. And the benefit there is you can attach it to an app, run it via API programmatically any way you want. And also, you're only charged for the time when you're actually doing inference rather than when you're messing around with configuration. So let's get going. You're going to want to get started on Modal.com and create an account. They give you $30 a month of credits for free and $5 at first without even putting a credit card. So go ahead and create an account. Once you're in, you're going to just click through their little market research. This video is not sponsored by Modal, though I wish it were. You will see how amazing this product is. And then get started, and then you're going to copy these instructions, or I will have them in the open source GitHub repo for you. Then you're going to want to go into your terminal. Hopefully you have Python installed, and you will do pip install Modal. Then just Modal setup. This will authenticate you with your account. And you're all set up with Modal. Then you're going to want to go to the GitHub repo that is linked in the video comments. This is open source. I've created it so you can actually run the FantasyPortrait in Modal without having to write any code, and just copy that repo link. Then you're going to git clone the repo, cd into the repo, modal-fantasy-portrait. Then we're going to pip install Pydantic. And then we're actually ready to deploy the app to your Modal account. So Modal deploy app.py. It will take a bit longer the first time you do this because it actually builds the Docker image and pushes it. Subsequent runs, they don't have to do all of the layers, so it is faster. But every time you change anything in the app.py in the code, you're going to want to run modal deploy app.py again. Now that we have our app deployed, we are ready to generate our first video. The command to do that is modal run app.py. You have to give it a path to an image. It could be either locally on your machine or a URL on the web. You have to give it a, quote, driven video path. That is not driver video path. It's actually driven video path. That's what they used in the original FantasyPortrait repo, so I kept that. You're going to want a path to a video, either on your machine or in the cloud. And then a prompt for this. We're just going to use the dog is talking, and then an output path. Here we're doing output slash, and our file name. Outputs is a folder in the GitHub directory that's already created for you, and it just get ignored, so you can put things there and it won't actually get pushed to Git if you end up pushing to Git. And then just hit enter and it kicks off your job. The first time you run this, it will take a bit longer because your model files have to download and they get stored in Modal. Modal does not charge for storage, which is amazing. They have actually a very smart system for reusing files that are shared among projects, and that makes the startup time very fast. We are shutting down our project every time it runs immediately, and even starting from quote cold only takes a few seconds and is not significant in the overall time for generation. There's a really good blog that I will link in the description showing how Modal's architecture has evolved and how they are using content addressing so they can reuse files among different projects, and how there is such crossover between which files are being used, enabling them to run very efficiently. You can see that there's very extensive logs being written out. You can change this if you want in the app.py. We see that it detected there's 92 frames in the driving video, and that's what it's going to use for the output. You can see it goes through the face detection steps on the driving video, and then it's going to go through 30 inference steps. You could also change the number of inference steps you want to use. This is Modal's machine list with pricing. We're currently running on an A100 with 80 GB of VRAM. I also ran tests with the L40S, which worked quite nicely and is a little cheaper. But for longer videos above 5-ish seconds, you're going to want to have more VRAM available. And it's really easy to switch between hardware. I'll show you how to do that in app.py. And then it is going to write your output. All of that completed in about 350 seconds. So let's open the output and see how it did.
I have a really low tolerance for dehydration.
Pretty good results in the beginning. It seems to have not caught the lip sync at the end, but the beginning usable. So that generation was from our CLI. And next, I will show you how you can actually run this as an API. First thing we have to do is go into Modal and create a token so that our API is secure. This is a proxy auth token, and you're going to want to copy those values. So we're going to go back into our terminal and export our token ID with the value you got, and then export our token secret. And now we are ready to call our API. In the README, I have some curl commands to do this. You could write your own client. You can incorporate this into an app, but just to test it out and play with it, you can just use the curl commands. And we see that when we're calling the API similarly to when we use the CLI, we have to send in an image, a driven video, and a prompt. And here we are using Google Storage to host our image and our video. And once that is called, this is an asynchronous API, and so you get to go and check for status to see when it's done. And I have a command in the README to check for the status. When it's not ready yet, you will get a 202 back. When it is ready, you will get a 200. And we can echo to see that we are saving a call ID that will be used for the status call, and then the retrieving the actual file call. And that's the status call. And we see that we get the 202 because we just kicked this off and it's not ready yet. While it's generating, I can show you that in Modal, they have your logs that you can see if you just go into modal.com and click on your app, and so you can see the logs being generated in real time. So you can check on your progress that way and see if there's any issues that have arisen. That finished generating in 430 seconds. And so now we can go into our terminal and call to actually get the file. We'll do our status call again to see that we get a 200. And we do. So it is ready for us. And then we do the last curl command to actually retrieve the file. And then since I'm already in outputs, I need to go up a level so that I'm not telling it to write to a place that doesn't exist. And now we have our results, and we can go into it and open it up and see how it did.
Those clothes and those shoes, and you smell.
Overall, it didn't pick up the affect I would have liked it to, but I am finding that this model does do well with animal faces and faces that might be harder for earlier models like LivePortrait to work with. There's still some improvement that I can see happening here. The last thing I wanted to do was show you how the repo works and how you can change items in the code to change how the videos generate. So it's a pretty simple project in that we have the FantasyPortrait researcher repo as a subtree. We have our outputs directory to put our videos, and then most of the action happens in app.py. So let's open that. This is not the most beautiful production-ready code, but it works. So what's nice about Modal is if you don't like Docker files, you basically define your image in Python. So this is basically, saying what your base image is and setting up your dependencies all in Python. And then we define our endpoints. So you can see it says requires proxy auth equals true. That's what makes it so that we have to get that token and so that the endpoint is more secure. And this is our head request to get our status. And then we see here that this is defining our GPU model class. And this is where if you wanted to change what type of instance you're using, you just change this from, say, A180GB to the L40S. Works as well. I've played with that. And then this is how the actual model weights get downloaded. If they don't exist already on the first run, they actually get called from Hugging Face and are downloaded to Modal. On subsequent runs, they're already there, so it's much, much quicker. And then every time we generate a video, it calls this generate video function. And this is basically a wrapper on the inference code that the researchers created. So this command is calling their inference py file. So this is the way you can change items. Like you change your resolution, just like right here. You can change your classifier free guidance, etc. And that's basically the meat of it. So I hope this was helpful. Please hit subscribe as I will be creating a similar video for using infinite talk with Modal. And thanks for watching.